Hello everybody, and welcome to another video with Flying Toasters. You may think this is a Macintosh, but it's not. This is my MorphOS system. I wanted to kind of go over what I've been working on with MorphOS, and I wanted to kind of go over what I did and how you can configure MorphOS and make it work for you. Now, after you get this desktop, I highly recommend you install what's called the Chrysalis pack, and I downloaded it here in Downloads, and what I like to do is click this icons and say All Files, and when you're done, you can right-click and say Snapshot All. Sound familiar? It's an ISO, it's about 700 megs. You can download it. I'll provide links below. It's available from the MorphOS team website. I registered mine, so it was $70 US, but without it you can use Morph for 20 minutes before it becomes unbearably slow and you have to reboot. You can continue where you left off, but 20 minutes at a time, and here is my time right now. I've been up for 23 minutes and 23 seconds, and I'll go over what these are in just a moment. But the Chrysalis pack is an ISO, and you can just double-click on it, and you can see Chrysalis for MorphOS 3.1.2. Back up all your data. I just hit continue, and I just installed it. What it does, yes, I really want to abort. What it does is when you go into your system here, you have all of these. This is your standards. So applications, classes, devs, locale, prefs, storage, tools, utility, workbench, startup. You'll see I tossed in my Amiga Explorer using TCP/IP. I can browse MorphOS just like I can browse the Amiga through Amiga Explorer. It's the actual same disk. I opened the ADF and drug it over. There's a little README file in here. And this looks all familiar, but when you install the Chrysalis, you get these extra applications for audio, and you get a bunch of players and rippers and some desktop stuff and managers, all sorts of different things. I haven't played around with every single thing. I did do the different emulators. EUAE I did somewhat configure for the ROMs for my Amiga Forever CD. Some of these you will know right off the bat because of their names, and these are not quite configured yet because I may reinstall the entire system. Why? The system partition, as you can see, is only has 420 megs free. It's 1.5 gigs in use of 1.9. I'm used 79% full. Window a little bit. Some of the first things I do after installing Chrysalis is not to, get all these packs installed and all these different things. It's just for a couple of the more advanced settings and gives you more programs. Right now, you don't have to worry about that if you're just getting started, but I do highly recommend you give yourself a 4 gig system partition. So the first thing I do is the preferences. Now, your MorphOS desktop is going to leave these. These isn't going to look like this. You'll have like this, right? The My MorphOS icon is kind of like your root directory. It's kind of like clicking on think of DH0 if it had all your volumes in RAM, like your directory opus list, which, by the way, works fine. Cool, huh? So this lists all your volumes. You can see my server volume on the Amiga. Everything works great. If you double click on the desktop too, it will open up the My MorphOS icon. So you could actually hide this if you wanted to. You could highlight this, right click, and then get rid of it, unsnapshot it. But I'm not worried about that right now. One of the first things I go through are the preferences. Now, until you're familiar with MorphOS, it might drive you crazy. I got to my preferences through my panel or the dock bar, but you can also right click. Now, you're not going to see all these menus either because these are part of the Chrysalis pack. So what you'll see is you'll have settings, you'll have ambient, edit, view, icons, utilities, and settings. But if you go into settings and then say system, it's the same as this preference here. And I just actually went into prefs and then I drug this right here, which we'll go over panels in a moment. But when you finally get in here, there's this there's a user preference called screens. And I had to set mine for, you'll see my Radeon 9600, which is the card that's in the Mac Pro. I set it for 24-bit 1280 by 720. It will do higher resolution, but for the purposes of my capture card, I had to set it to a resolution that I could display on this capture card. And you can see there are many resolutions. It'll do up to 16 by 9, 1680, 1050, 1920 by 1080, 24-bit, 16-bit. There's plenty of resolutions that it will do. There's also some background. You can choose colors. You can choose different Amiga OS style look. So if I wanted this to look like Amiga OS, let me click cancel because I think I changed the resolution. Think of this as a theme. So in preferences, after you select your screen mode and configure your theme, I highly recommend you go over here to Eye Control. Eye Control gives you access to customize hotkeys, but over here on screens and desktop, what you need to check off is allow windows to be placed out of screen. Because otherwise, if you don't, right, you're stuck to this where you can't drag a window out of the screen. It just doesn't. And that is very bad. If you're used to the 3.1.4 layers library upgrade where you're allowed to drag out a screen, go ahead and check that off, and that way you can move stuff out of the screen. And if you screw up, you can just press what is it, Control, I think, and click, and it brings it back into the mainframe where you can grab it, which is also available right here. You can say Control is pressed. The blanker you saw when I had the flying toasters, as you can see here, there are many available in here. Many of these were part of the Chrysalis pack. So I just really enjoyed flying toasters. It reminds me of the Berkeley After Dark. So the next thing we're going to cover real quick is this thing called panels. Panels is this dock bar thing that you see at the bottom. So you have to get to the ambient settings. So we're going to get out of preferences here, and then settings, and instead of system, we're going to go into ambient settings. I know it seems like this should be a preference, but this is where you're going to see your different backgrounds, like the Laguna. There's different things you can choose. The Laguna is the blue wave backdrop that I have right now. You can choose different modes for displaying, different colors. This system is just, it amazes me the more I use it, how wonderful, how fast, and how intuitive it is. Like Amiga OS, it is different. Don't think, hey, this is Amiga OS. There's a lot of similarities between the Amiga OS and Morph. But what we're going to do is we're going to go down here to panels. Now when you create a new panel, is it okay? See this? I get this blank thing. Now if I were to grab, I don't know, Exchange, and drag it to this panel, there it is. See? Now you can do it that way. Let's close this panel. So again, settings, ambient, and then I'm on panels, and here's my panel right now. What I can do is I can resize my window here. This is Ambient Radio, and you can mouse over these and see what they are. This is OWB, followed FTP, and so on. And you can see them in order here. You can rearrange them if you don't have your dock locked, which is right-click, and you can lock and unlock these. I can change the color. I can change the size. Small, large. Make it yours. You can also add spacers. So this, you could do bookmarks, a directory, and we could do subpanels, which allows you to group items into other subpanels. So I could drag this either down here, but I'm going to go in at the top here, on the very top, and you see it looks like a little directory, but this subpanel, now I can grab and put the shell in, see? And now if I click on this, there's the shell, and I could do the same for preferences by dragging this up to the subpanel, and then if I click on it, there's prefs. So up in this corner here, which I'm going to get to, you can right-click and there is this modules window. Whoops. And now you can choose all of these different ones. Now I've chosen net lamps, which is the one to the left, the thermal, which is the one where it says 142.4, uptime, volume, CPU gauge, and eject. You can choose many other things here. You can arrange their order. There are many different modules to pick from. And you see I have my disk.infos that we use on the actual Amigas when I'm on the network, and I can browse them the same. Now, because it uses disk.info and this is highly based off of Amiga OS, you can see they are arranged how they were arranged with the layout when I did it on the Amiga. If I were to change this, it would actually stick on the Amiga too. So if I if I choose all files so we can see everything versus just the icons, and you can change the directory views from list. Certain things can work, like AMA speed test. I should be able to actually run this 68K application. I can hit start and it should work fine. Yeah, there it goes, which is a little bit faster than the 5 megs I get on the A3000 or the Amiga 2000 Vampire card. So it does pretty good. I don't need to run AMA speed test. You can't run things like sysinfo because that requires the custom chipset or a configured EUAE environment, which I have not, totally completed yet. Sysspeed, I don't know if it's going to work. Let's give it a shot. Nah. Let's see. Sysinfo. Here we go. Look at that. I'm a 68060 at 13 megahertz. Awesome. PowerPC at 1.8 gigahertz. All the cache is turned on. CyberGraphics X on a Radeon 9600 Pro, 1280 by 720 at 50 hertz. I'm actually 60 hertz, but I don't care because it's working. I think that's neat. Alright, but sysspeed with off an R54 benchmarks. Now, when you try to run sysinfo or any other utility that requires it, it's just not going to run. AMAGod is another one. I don't think that I can get good speeds out of this. It thinks I'm an Amiga 1200, so you can run 68K applications. As you saw, it, isn't the best on 68K apps. As far as the Chrysalis pack gives you all the menu items that you would normally get from digging around in your application's extra. Grunge is this icon right here, which is also available in your application's system directory. And what this is it reminds me of like Yum on CentOS or a Linux package manager where you can check for updates or install apps from the MorphOS storage space. If you're missing some libraries or if you need updates, you can choose to update any that need it in the background or ignore if necessary. You'll see like a couple of my libraries here I have ignored. And with them all loaded, if I'm scrolling to the top, if I wanted an application that's a Sudoku, you can look up the top. It tells you the author and the different stuff about the program. This is a comic book reader. Rival file compare. This looks like a PDF, compact PDF viewer. It looks like it's installed, and I can hit check. And I have the latest version. I have it on ignore, so I'm not auto-updating these things. Blender, a lot of these I don't have installed and I don't use. You can go through many of the different available things. And if you have an issue with them, you can also repair. So it's a package manager and, installer for different things. And you can always go to state and just sort by what is installed. Whoops, sort the wrong way. And go through your stuff and check versions of the server and what's online. Some of these I have ignored, and you can change that to update or ignore or whatever. You can set each one to, you know, what you want. Do I want to ignore this? I hit ignore. If I want to update this HTML viewer and I don't, I can change this to ignore, and then it will, you know, and you can just say update. So if there is an update available, it will install. I recommend you launch OWB, which is in your dock bar too, and you can go to MorphOS storage, which is on morphos-storage.net, and this is a web server dedicated to MorphOS users. Think of it as the Aminet for MorphOS. It doesn't have everything. Aminet still has everything. It's the main thing, but you know, the latest description, there's a new scum, January 27th. New Atomic Bomberman. They got some games on here that are really good. I love Bomberman, by the way. You have like LibreOffice and a whole bunch of other type programs you can just download. Some of these are, you know, what is that, 680K? It's a word processor. Let's see how it looks. Not bad. So, I mean, pretty cool. I'm just mousing over these to see the pictures. The browser surprisingly does very well, and you can spoof this sucker as whatever you want. So I'm just on default, but you can spoof it as Chrome, Edge, OWB, Firefox, Safari, whatever. I just leave it at default. Everything seems to work fine. Any HTML5s. I've really had not a lot of problems with it, and you can actually watch YouTube on this. Now, I don't know how it's going to work on this. It's on a wireless card right now. Let's see. We can watch the little... This is the iPhone 11 commercial from Apple. It's a commercial. Slow-mo slow-fees on the iPhone 11. So, I mean, it works. You know, there's this guy. Let's see. Look at this. I know this dude. There's a bunch of MorphOS places you can start off, but I highly recommend starting with the main site at the Morph Zone or MorphOS, the team itself. You can download MorphOS from the links I provide in the description below. And the same as I did last time, this is just an update on my usage, my configuration, how I'm kind of messing around with it, and the different programs that I have found that I use. There's a lot of great players. I was jamming to some music mods. Oh yeah, you can do music mods too. So if I go into Exciter here, I'm just going to load Exciter and kind of drag it out of the way. And I'm going to grab some music mods. So if I go to work and I go to music mods and I change this to view all files and I just grab Facts on the Run and drag it in there, I can double click on this and I can close this little window and I can play this music mod fine. And then I can minimize this. Whoop. Iconify. Poof. Now I'm listening to music mods and it's right here on the desktop. Whoop. I can double click on this and bring it back. That's another neat feature. So you have Iconify, you can snapshot it in the position, you can send it to another screen, the settings on it, maximize, and of course this toggles window, front and back, just like the classic Amiga OS. So that is the Exciter player for mods. MP3s, I just double click on, they load with another player. There's also the Simple Mail, which supports all of the modern SSL and IMAP and different configurations for your mail. Iris is another Amiga mail program. I think this is the one I configured with my Comcast account. So Iris that I launched 2 or 3 times. This is my inbox. Oh look, there's my MorphOS registration and my key file, which is just a little key file. Thank you for your registration. Here's your key. You have to put this in your devs drawer sys.morphos.key. We hope you enjoy your registered version of MorphOS. For more steps, you'll be able to use, after completing this aforementioned steps, you'll be able to use MorphOS without any time restrictions. That goes back to what I was talking about in the beginning when I said if you download this and use it, you can use it for 20 minutes at a time. And the website is morphos.team.net, and you can download that. So Iris is my mailer. I never configured Simple Mail. I used Iris. That's about it. And one thing I do like is this is a no F's given shutdown. If I hit this button and I say shutdown, reboot, or cancel, like, it is instantly off. I mean, like, I can reboot. It's instant reboot. Watch. You probably heard the piece. There's the PowerMac sound. It's rebooting. The capture card doesn't really release. It just kind of reboots this right away. So that is MorphOS, everyone. I am still playing around with it. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it helps you make the decision if you want to run MorphOS. It's on a PowerMacG5 2.0. And thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something.